Good evening. This is a great occasion. I'm so happy to see the library full. My name is Edwin Melendez. I'm the director of the Center for Puerto Rican Studies, and we welcome you all tonight. This is a special occasion. We have one of our own, Alberto Hernández, who has just published a book. For those of us who are in the business of academia, that's a major accomplishment. We only get to publish a couple of them in a lifetime. And so we're here to celebrate Alberto's work. He's going to start by presenting the work, and then we have a panel of distinguished colleagues who are going to comment on his work. Before I introduce the panel, I would just want to say 2 words about Alberto. I have to. Let me start by saying he's a very shy person. But I have very few friends who are renacentistas, people who can do a broad range of things. They are, intellectuals and analytical. He also plays the piano, and he also writes on the humanities. There are very few people that can have all those talents and skills. And it's really our gain stealing him from Florida after a distinguished career in Boston and New York and so forth. It's really our pleasure to have him as the director of the library and chief archivist for the Center for Puerto Rican Studies. So it's with great pleasure that I present Alberto Hernández and his work. To comment on his presentation, we have a distinguished panel. We have Ms. Cherín Sanromá, daughter of our beloved
Pianist, yeah, Chuchu.
Chuchu, okay. I'm sorry, I didn't know him, so I can't introduce him that way. But anyway, an entrepreneur, former manager of the San Juan Pops Orchestra. We also have famous soprano Eva de la O, organizer of Música de Cámara here in New York City. We also have soprano Thelma Ethier Sterling, music professor at Ulster Community College, and a concertist. You're going to present also an event next week, no?
Yes, we will.
You'll make an announcement later about this, more detail. Okay. We also have concert pianist José Ramos Santana, now a faculty member at Catholic University in Washington, D.C. We have pianist and disciple del maestro, Alberto Forteza, chair of the Humanities Department at Ulster Community College. And we have musicologist Edgardo Díaz, now at NYU here in New York City and formerly from Young Jay and other places. So it's my great pleasure to have you all here tonight. And I leave the floor to Mr. Dr. Alberto Hernández.
I leave the floor.
Yes.
Buenas noches again. It's a real pleasure to be here. For some reason, I never thought that this moment was going to take place for many, many years. 10 years ago, I started collecting materials on Sanromá, the pianist, from when we were at the Conservatorio de Música in Atorrey in Puerto Rico, and I was lucky to meet a very genteel dame, Ms. Mercedes Sanromá. With her, I spent many evenings, we did things that you don't know about. We went to restaurants we were not supposed to go, eat the food that she was not supposed to eat because she was diabetic, etc. So and she could ride a car. How old was she when she drove that car? 94. She could drive that car and also a little car, and you won't believe how she would go to the pastelillo. She would, but she took me everywhere, and she was very generous with everything with the beloved maestro Chuchu. Chuchu is a nickname for Jesus in Puerto Rico. I never dare call Maestro Sanromá Chuchu. I never did. No me atrevía. I come from Ay Bonito, and I was so shy. But of course, we referred to him, and he that was his favorite name. Let's start. I just want to show some photographs that are included in the book, most of them. I was told I just push the button and there they go. Yes, this is the Maestro Sanromá. Can you see from there?
Yes.
Are you okay?
We don't hear you.
You don't hear me? Oh, I'm sorry. This is Maestro Sanromá. He was born in Carolina, Puerto Rico in 1902 and died in San Juan in 1984. Maestro Sanromá wanted to play my wedding. My anniversary was yesterday, by the way. And it was 25th anniversary. No, but he wanted to play the organ. But he was in the hospital. He said, can I play the organ? I said, well, Maestro, you know. But he's an incredible person. He's playing the piccolo, which is the flautín. When he was a little boy, he wanted to emulate his brother, Juan Bautista. And this dog is very famous. That you could send the dog to the supermercado in Fajardo con una listita, and he won't eat the food, and he will take the thing. Did you know the story? And ¿cómo se llama? So he was very, very, people know it in town. He will take the thing, he will take the list to the carnicero, a la carnicería, al supermercado, and then he'll bring back the food without touching it. So he was a very reliable guy. The flautín is a very small instrument, but it sounds above the military bands, la piana. And that's why Chuchu wanted to shine. He wanted to be above everybody else. So it was a little instrument, but it was very, very loud. Here is the first piano. Sanromá's father, José María Sanromá y Ripoll, was from Catalonia. He came to Puerto Rico before the Hispanic-American War. And he also was a piano technician of many, many things. So this piano was left by itself, and he fixed it. And Chuchu fell in love with the piano. There's a nice story about, breaking the lock, because, you're not supposed to touch the piano, lo desafinan, But Chuchu fell in love with the piano for the rest of his life. I mean, I remember being in the hospital, intensive care, and he would ask me questions about music, Here's a famous photograph. After a few years, after his third year of taking classes, he moved to San Juan, and he was presented at Ateneo Puerto Riqueño, which is a big Puerto Rican Spanish cultural center in the island. Remember that in 1898, we changed government, but Ateneo always stayed as a, Spanish culture, Spanish language, etc. So José de Diego, the guy on the left, was very instrumental in obtaining a grant for Chuchu, for Sanromá. He's the little guy on the right, for obtaining a scholarship to come and study at the New England Conservatory in Boston. This is during the First World War, so it was decided that instead of going to Europe, he would go to the USA. And it happens that Governor Yeager knew about Boston and have connections in Boston. So they fixed it, and he came to Boston in New Year's Eve of 1916. Here he met a lot of people. These are very distinguished gentlemen. Comes from Poland. He was a cellist, and he also was the teacher for chamber music, which is one of Chuchu's greatest achievements. I mean, he was considered the best chamber music player in the USA or in the world, and very many famous people wanted to play with him. And luckily, we have many recordings with Hasha Heifetz, Yehudi Menuhin, Primrose, Casals, that testify that he was really quite an interesting person to do music with. Everybody loved him as a person, and everybody loved him as a musician. Louis Krasner was from Ukraine. He came to the New England Conservatory to study violin. And both of them will go to the teacher and bring all these dissonant works, like, they were not dissonant, Greek, Rachmaninoff, But at that time, we're talking about 1917, 1920s, it was very dissonant. And Debussy, Ravel was like strange for the years of this gentleman. Louis was very, very instrumental in Europe. He came to be one of the premier violinists for contemporary music. He did introduce many works for Webern and Berg. Here we have the third guy from the right to left? No, one. This guy with a flauta. With a flauta, that's Sanromá's brother, Juan.
Okay.
And there were only two boys in the family, and Chuchu is the one with the shorts. Yeah, he hated the shorts. They last for a long time. So he was a very good side player. He could side read anything. And if he could hear music, he could make an arrangement at side. So he was very good at making the arrangements for this group and also at the conservatory. They play a lot around town, and there's many stories about the girls wanted Sanromá to play more and play the pop and the foxtrot and all the popular music, because he was also very good at all kinds of music. And they convinced him only if they gave him ice cream. So there's the Huntington, I read the newsletter from that period, the 1920, 1919, and he could eat 10 scoops of ice cream on one sitting.
In old age.
In old age, yes. Antoinette Sumowska was also a Polish, like her husband, they came from Poland. She was married to Joseph Adamowski, the cellist we just saw. She was very important in Chuchu's life. After Chuchu graduated in 1920, from the conservatory. She took him for 7 years. I wouldn't let him go until he was really, really ready to go to the world of music. And she had a very distinguished career. She knew about all the secrets about programming, languages. I remember Chuchu telling me that when he learned how to play Chopin mazurka, she would show him how to dance the mazurka. So in order to be a good player, you have to know how to dance con la danza, no? La danza puertorriqueña, like the Puerto Rican dance. You have to know how to dance them so you can play them. This is just a record of students were keeping all the repertory that they learned. They had to sign it, and then at the end of the semester, the professor had to sign them with them. Most of the time, Chuchu played everything by memory, no problem at all. This is a publicity photo taken in Paris in 1928, and Chuchu gave 2 tours in Europe, 1927 to 1928, and then he came to Boston, and then he went back on 1929. So this is when he made it big in Spain, London, Vienna, Paris, Berlin, and Madrid and Barcelona. Yeah, those were the big cities. He had the help of Maestro Kusevitsky, which was a Russian conductor for the Boston Symphony Orchestra, one of the top orchestras in the USA at that time. I would say 3 orchestras, New York Philharmonic, Chicago, and then Philadelphia, and then the Boston Symphony. So Maestro Kusevitsky, I don't know if you have heard the name Stokowski. There was the other big conductor. And of course, Arturo Toscanini. So Kusevitsky was brought in from Russia, directly from Russia, to the Boston Symphony. Welcome.
Hello.
Hi.
These are distinguished pianists. José Ramos Santana, welcome.
Nice to meet you.
Yeah, it's a big traffic jam out there. Thank you. So this is actually, Chuchu was lucky also because his brother was a very good photographer. So all these pictures, his brother would climb behind the scene Symphony Hall, climb up the thing, and then through a little hole he would take all these beautiful pictures. That's why I like it so much. So this is during a concert at Boston Symphony Hall. When he went to Paris, he stayed in Kusevitsky's house, and he met a lot of the big composers and musicians of his period. We're talking 1928, 29. He met Stravinsky, Prokofiev, Rachmaninoff, Glazunov. He met many others that were coming to see the Maestro Kusevitsky. These guys here, the middle guy is Virgin. He's the concert master and also a conductor, assistant conductor for the Boston Symphony. He and Chuchu play many, many concerts together as violin duo and piano, but also in orchestra. And the guy on the right is Bedetti. Bedetti was a very good cellist, but he left Boston Symphony and moved to Cleveland later on. But they did come, Chuchu brought them to Puerto Rico 3 times. So they play in San Juan, in Mayagüez, and Ponce. That's in 33, 34. And he brought his friends with him to make music, and they would donate the money to the cause. If it was a symphony orchestra, they would do it for free, etc. This is Maestro Kusevitsky again. Sanromá was very, very close to Kusevitsky. I have to still investigate a little bit more on that, but it's to the point that when they buried Kusevitsky, he was carrying the cross that Chuchu gave him when he saw him the last time. So that tells a little bit about how close he was and what he meant to him. Chuchu was very incredible entrepreneur. I mean, he could get along with anybody. So Kusevitsky had lots of enemies, like any famous person. But Chuchu could go back and forth and be nice and friendly with everybody. This is a very informal photograph at Kusevitsky's home for the publicity pictures of the famous recording they did for RCA. The guy in the middle here is the producer and also an aspiring conductor, Charles O'Connell. The guy on the right, yes, okay, it's Arthur Fiedler, which is one of Boston's most famous bachelors for many years. And these three guys were very, how do you say? Three bachelors with 3 more, and then many other people. And they were very, how do they say? They have a really interesting nightlife. And there's many stories about all of them. Here's an informal photo with Chuchu and Fiedler, and I think it's like a park in Boston also. And this was taken, of course, by Juan. This is a very famous esplanade. This is a place, Charles River. They built this concert, what do you call it? Acústica. Acoustic shell. Concha acústica. And in the 4th of July, imagine, have you ever seen the fireworks from Boston? That's the place they take them. So Choo used to play a lot of Gershwin, and people will ask them to please play the Gershwin Rhapsody in Blue. And they play it many, many times at the 4th of July before putting the fireworks, you know. So this shows the magnitude. This is the Charles River, the city, the other side, which is Cambridge. And this is on the southern side of the river. Elizabeth Coolidge, I'm sorry, my photographs are being moving up and down. She was very instrumental. She was a musician herself, but she was very instrumental in bringing contemporary music to the United States. Later, she became a grand dame of chamber music. She was instrumental for people like Aaron Copland, Paul Hindemith, Stravinsky. She would commission people to write chamber music for her quartets. And Choo, of course, was in all of these endeavors. Paul Hindemith was the youngest and most popular composer in that period. This is 1930-34, before the Second War. And he was fascinated with Choo. His music is very austere and serious, but he was a punkster like Choo. And they play a lot of music together. They will make, they went to a concert in Harvard University and there was no piano. So they have stories that Hindemith play a solo sonata. In the meantime, they got the piano. Then they got the piano. They didn't have a bench. Then the bench was too small. Choo was not too high. So he needed they used a Sears catalog to put him up. So there are many stories about, they're doing, and these are, funny stories. Paderewski was a teacher of Madame Sumoska. And also, this is the smallest of Sanromá's daughter. And of course, she's kind of shy and curious because this old man, is approaching her and kissing her hand. And that's not, customary. So I'm sure she was. That was the Marisol. Marisol. Look at this. The interesting thing about, of course, the big nose. There's no name Sanromá anywhere on that poster, so people know him that much. Look at that. So this was the poster in mass. And look at that. It says Boston favorite, the date of the concert, the day, but it doesn't say who was playing. So he was a pretty well known over there. He was a Red Sox fan. In 1932, there was a hurricane, and the Department of Education, friend of Augusto Rodriguez, asked them to see if they could have a concert to have obtain monies for the victims of the hurricane, and all the Boston Symphony Pops and Arthur and Choo gave they collected the money. They gave this concert like in 2 weeks. Don Jesús María José was involved also, Secretary and Godoy, and it's very interesting. They did this benefit concert just on the fly. Villalobos was a very famous Brazilian composer, and he called Sanromá Pianista Mágico, magic pianist. So he really loved the way Choo interpreted his music. This is a list of concerts. Concertos that Choo used to play, and it was in 1933. Before he became independent, he stayed also with the Boston Symphony for many years. In 1940, 45, 46, during the war, he became an independent artist for Columbia Airways. This is the famous first Rachmaninoff piano competition of 1948. Choo is the one on the top, as the second here. And there's also other important people, like Abraham Chasins, Horowitz, conductor Linthor, and the widow is the lady in the middle. And they have it lasted 3 years to have the winner. And Choo was in many of the auditions in different regions. Jose Ferrer, the distinguished Puerto Rican actor, knew Sanromá from Puerto Rico, and then Sanromá taught his aunt, Monsita Ferrer. And they met in Boston when Jose Ferrer was married to Jutta Hagen. They came to do Othello in Boston. And, I have a letter saying, please come, I have 2 tickets for El Borincano a Otro. Actually, I have a story with Jose Ferrer. I was playing my piano in a class, and suddenly this guy comes in and says, my gosh, this is Jose Ferrer. And I panic. I was playing my sonata or something, and oh, let's go for lunch. And I put my hand in my pocket, and I have like, 45 cents? It never occurred to me that they were inviting me. I thought I had to pay for them or something. They said, no, I'm not hungry, so thank you. In the Festival Casals, Victoria de Los Angeles, also from Catalonia, like Choo's parents, they did a Mozart concert area. This is during rehearsal. I'm sure she wouldn't like the photograph, but I love her. You know, and Chuchu played with her. It's a piece for piano, soprano, and orchestra. It's a very unusual arrangement, but they did that. It's recorded, but I have never listened to that recording. It's at the Museo Casals in Puerto Rico. This is the Sanromá Pasarel family. These are the 4 daughters, Opus 1, Opus 2, Opus 3, Opus 4. That's how he calls them. And of course, Doña Mercedes, the lady on his left. I think it's a beautiful photo. Chuchu used to bring us students from the conservatory to play to Don Pablo Casals in Christmas, like Aguinaldo, pero es de música clásica, okay? We didn't sing Aguinaldo, we had to play Sonata, Beethoven Sonata, Bach and Mozart. But it was fun. Martita was very charming. I remember, the only thing I remember was the sandwiches. The whole thing was delicious stuff. My wife actually is in the picture, and 2 sisters. We have one of the guests are here. The 2 ladies sitting down are the 2 big, important piano teachers in Puerto Rico, Cecilia Talavera on the far, and sitting next to Pablo Casals, the old gentleman, and Luz Hutchinson. They were sisters. They were very, very good pianists and very important in the music in Puerto Rico at that time. Sanromá is, of course, sitting on Casals here. And this was photographed in 1969. I brought this picture because the Walter Piston is interesting. He calls at the house, and Jose Maria didn't speak any English, hardly any English. And then he said, "This is Walter Piston." Jesús María, and Jose María said, "We don't have any problem with the water system." But in Spanish, no hay ningún problema con la pistola. Aquí la tubería está bien. And so I guess he hung up. But he became a very, very close friend. I didn't know that. Mercedes told me they were very close friends. And he was a Harvard University faculty member, head of the department. And he was, of course, a composer of first magnitude. And he wrote many pieces for Sanromá. The guy on the right is Dixon, which was the last meeting they had in 1971 at New England Conservatory. That's it. Thank you so much. You ready? Are you ready? Miss Cherín Sanromá, she's sitting right next to me. Cherín is very instrumental. She's very generous with her time, her food, her liquor. So I spent many afternoons with Cherín talking about her father, where things are, where are the papers, who has the papers, etc. Cherín, since she's been in the island for a while, she knew everybody and how to get around and meet other people. So I would say thanks to her, to Susan Godoy, a former student of Sanromá, and Mercedes, this is the reason why the book came out. It took me 8 years, 1 sabbatical, and many, many endless days and nights, because it's, I don't know, if you have ever written a book, it's like, I don't envy you. It's a beautiful task, because I wanted to do it because I wanted to share the story of Sanromá with everybody. And Mercedes, the wife, also thought the same thing. So I'm very happy for you being here, and I want you, Cherín, to help a distinguished guest here to tell you their experiences with Sanromá. Thank you.
Thank you, Alberto. Not very tall. Sorry about that. I get that from my father.
We need another book.
I need a book. A Sears catalog. No, that's too loud. All right. We have here a lot of students, pianists, singers, and historians, and they all knew Dad some way or another. I'm Opus 3, by the way. From the quartet, I'm Opus 3. My sister, Opus 4, is also here, and Natalia, and Chuchu's granddaughter, great-granddaughter, sorry. Let me tell you. Can you hear me?
Not on the back.
That one sounds really bad.
Thank you.
I have a better voice than you. Is it on? How about now? Okay, good. Okay, well, the last one to get in here is going to be the first one. That's just a penalty for being so late. So, José Santana, I call him Kiko, but he's a great pianist, and you teach at Juilliard, right?
Right now in the Faculty of Catholic University.
Oh,
Washington.
wow, very good. And he is a concert pianist, very active indeed. So I would like you to stand up, take over the microphone, and give us your experiences with, what do you know about Sanromá?
You want to try music?
Yeah, we gotta trade now. Let's play musical chairs here. That's what we're here for.
Well, I remember the name of Sanromá in my memory because we had an old, in my mother's house, I grew up with my mother and my aunts, they had a big mirror, ¿cómo se llama un tocador? El buffet. A dresser. And the dresser had like something like this, right? And, you know, kids used to dress as the father, or the girls as the mothers. Well, I would sit at the dresser and start going like this and thinking I was Sanromá, because that was a name that it stuck in my head from my family, obviously. And I would hear the music, I would put a musical box, open it up that had some kind of a piano sound, and I would be giving a concert. So I still have that image in my mind as a child. I became in contact with Sanromá. I studied with Carmelina Figueroa, and I grew up with the Figueroa family. We're also of the most important venues of music on the island, where the instrumentalists were the Figueroas and Sanromá. And at that time, Narciso was teaching at the conservatory. I was around 12, and I gave my first piano recital at the Institute of Culture. And I invited everybody. My maestro couldn't make it that day, but he heard about it. And the first meeting he told me was like, "Oh, I heard you play. I'm sorry I missed it. Are you really practicing? You shouldn't be playing. You're too young for that. You should be practicing. Make yourself a pianist, and then you have enough time to play." So we're like, "Oh my God."
What did I do wrong?
What did I do wrong? Then the next year, I played a Beethoven sonata, and which was very peculiar. My teacher gave me that because he has an articulation in the last movement of 2 notes that is very, very unusual. And it's not the pathétique that everybody plays. It's not like, and Sanromá was intrigued that I played that sonata of Beethoven. Says, "Let me hear you play the last movement." So I sat down and I went to the article. Okay, that's correct. Go now. So, I mean, he was very, very colorful character in growing up, and I used to be terrified of him, to tell you the truth. But later on, when I came to the conservatory, and I did study as a special student. I really never was a part of the conservatory, but I went to his master classes, and I remember one pupil playing, and she was playing the Fantasy-Stücke of Schumann, and it had very well, I mean, in the score, at the end of one of them, the Traum Rising, he has pianissimo, and she went fortissimo, tan, 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 and we're like, that's strange. And Mr. Sanromá, among other things that corrected her, was, no, the score says pianissimo, you have to play pianissimo. So I thought, that man knows what he's doing. So it was kind of a mutual thing. And then I came and I played the Rachmaninoff second, because I won at the Juilliard School with that piece at the concerto competition. I played it at Alice Tully Hall. And he came And that was his big piece when he, I think in 1926 in Boston, he played it, and with great success. And the best compliment he ever gave me, well, one of the best compliments was that you played that piece the right way. Because there's a lot of people who play it that they don't play the way it should be played. So I felt very proud of that. Later on, he heard me play Chopin Sonata, and he gave me some advices, in that climax, it could be more expansive, and he was absolutely right. I was very interested and very, very impressed with his sense of rhythm. I remember him accompanying Amy Bow on the Prokofiev Third, and I stopped listening to her, and I stopped listening to the orchestra accompaniment, because he has such a fantastic, just incredible sense of rhythm. And the orchestration he brought, it was unbelievable. It was just amazing. And of course, after that, I heard him playing the most beautiful Schumann pieces. He had a fantastic velvet touch. He could make really magic in the piano. And I turned pages for him many times. When he did the cycle of the Beethoven sonatas for piano and violin with Pepito Figueroa at the Instituto de Cultura in Puerto Rico, I was the page turner.
Official.
And then,
Tell them what a page turner is. Tell them what it is.
oh, a page turner is somebody who, while you're playing chamber music, you usually read music because you, especially if you are with somebody else or an ensemble, you need to know where everybody is, and in case something goes awry, you need to know where you're going to go. So we, all musicians, especially pianists, play with music, so we are like the conductors of the whole thing. But, and by the way, my teacher, Adele Marcus, played the Stravinsky 2-piano concerto for soloist, and the page turner was Sanromá. So he's very interested in that. He played a Capriccio by Stravinsky, also was a piece that he made famous, and my teacher played it after him with Stravinsky conducting too. Other recollections that I have of him is, let's see, when he and then my favorite recording, one of my favorite recordings of all, is the Gabriel Fauré piano quartet that he recorded in 1957 with a Budapest string quartet in the Library of Congress. And I have heard all the great pianists, Émile Guillels, Arthur Rubinstein, the French, of course, play Fauré, and none of them come even close to the musicianship that Mr. Sanromá displayed on that recording. That recording is one of my favorite recordings. It's one of those few recordings that captures the magic of the pianist in sound, and that's very, very, very difficult to do and very rare. And I discussed this with him, and he says, but also what inspired me was that the Budapest String Quartet had that French sound. It had the French sound, and that made me, it was a subtle thing, but it made all the difference in the world, because it was just like, just really listening to the Fauré piano quartet. As I said, I never studied directly with him, but I benefited a lot from him and his musicianship. And I found it amusing, all the things that he wrote down with all the metronome markings and so places at that speed and so forth. That was very, very interesting and very curious. I think that Puerto Rico has been blessed with having had a Jesús María Sanromá in the time that happened, because that was a time where the island was really a very poor island, one of the poorest. And it's a phenomenon that somebody of that caliber comes out of all that misery. So, thank you very much.
Thank you, Kiko. Now to another page turner. Alberto, another Alberto also. This is Albertito. Let's sort of identify them. Albertito Beard. He studied 3 years with my father at the Conservatory of Music, and with Jorge Bolet and Abby Simon. So Albertito is going to, you have all your notes. You know what you're going to say. Go ahead.
I forgive you for calling me Albertito. I had a battle with my family when I became a teenager. You know, Albertito is a diminutive of Alberto in Spanish-speaking countries. And I fought my family for years not to, and then I came to the States, and this one of the guests who's going to speak to you later, who knew me when I was a kid, started calling me Albertito, so people call me that again. But, at my age, it's kind of weird. Called Little Alberto. You know, there is, I think, the development of an artist, the growth and development of an artist is a lifetime thing. It doesn't stop. But when one is young, I think an artist in his or her formative years, when you're a student, you have experiences that are transformational. And that was what my experience of studying with Sanromá was. When I came to him, I think I was 16 years old. I had not been playing the piano for very long. I was already an adolescent when I started learning how to play piano. A lot of people started, I'm sure people started when he was 5 or 6, or so when you were getting your first concert gig at that age, that's when I started learning how to play the piano. And I was really just blown away by Sanromá. He was a man who had this incredible career as a pianist in the United States. As you saw from Alberto's presentation, he played with the most famous musicians of the time. He had a fantastic reputation. He went back to Puerto Rico, to the island, and in Puerto Rico, another great musician who had moved to the island was a cellist named Pablo Casals, who was one of the greatest musicians of the time. And they established the Conservatory of Music of Puerto Rico. And Sanromá established the piano department. So the legacy that he left in Puerto Rico was really the curriculum for piano majors. And I see a lot of students here. I don't know if any of you are music majors, but you know, studying with him, somebody like me who was a kid who was so curious about music and had a real passion, and was in Puerto Rico, we call Fiebru, and Alberto is also that still. I was, you know, it was an incredible opportunity to study with someone who had such vast knowledge and experience. And I was like a sponge. I mean, I just took everything I could. And I think one of the greatest things he gave us was, in our education, was the curriculum he established in Puerto Rico. He made the students learn many, many different styles within classical music. So that when I came to the States to study, I really arrived here with an incredibly solid education in piano literature. I knew a lot of music, and I knew a lot about the different styles of different composers. He, as has been mentioned before, was a man of incredible sense of humor. He was fun. I mean, lessons with him were they were a riot. He would greet you with incredible jokes, and he was incredibly generous. I think the lesson, he's not the type of teacher, you know, you have a 1-hour lesson, and when the hour is up, he would say, you know, the next student's coming in. My lesson sometimes would last an entire afternoon. You start at 1 o'clock, 5:30, we were still going at it. And he gave me, it was a, you know, I studied with some very famous pianists subsequent to Puerto Rico also, but he did something that I didn't get after that, which was also a very scholarly approach to learning music. If you would bring a piece of music, you know, he assigned you this, you brought it. It wasn't a matter of sitting down to play the music. He would bring out different editions of the same music. He would talk about a historical context of the music. You would compare within the works of that same composer, maybe even vocal works or other instrumental works. So it was a really thorough education, not only pianistically, but musically also. And just to give you some examples of some of the kind of strange things that he did in his teaching, I think he really wanted to teach students to have a very facile and tactile facility and familiarity with the keyboard. He had a cardboard, it was like a square rectangular thing with a string that he put around your neck and it would be against your chest. So that when you sat at the piano with this thing in front of you, you couldn't see your hands. And then he would have you play some very difficult part of whatever piece you were studying to make you really feel what you were doing and you couldn't look. Or he would say, play such and such a chord or whatever, and he expected you to, without fishing around, to just put your hands and play whatever chord he asked you. And strangely enough, that type of thing, playing something like the coda of the second movement of Schumann Fantasy, where you're jumping like this, it comes very handy to be used to having just, it's that you're not really looking, you have to look at two places at the same time. In most piano studios, when you go to a conservatory school, usually they have a teacher has a piano, and then the student is in a piano, and then the teacher is in a piano next to yours. In his case, and I don't think it was a choice, I think the studios in the conservatory were small, so you had it was like a small grand piano, and he was in another piano facing you. And so he was not really looking at your hands when you were playing, but I remember the first time that he said to me, you played this with this finger and that finger, right? And I thought, is there a camera? And he was that, he was so intuitive, and he knew so much about the mechanics of playing the piano, not only the musical part, that it was phenomenal. And then to close, what I want to say, I think of all the things that he gave us, that I'm so grateful for, but there's one thing that really has stayed with me, and I live by it to this day, and it's this. I think, I call it like a 20th century phenomenon, and this, I'm talking about classical music, where we were taught and brought up that the score, what the composer wrote in the printed page, is sacred. So if you're playing a piece by Chopin, let's say, and in this part of the piece, Chopin indicates that you should play loud, it would be a violation of the composer's intention or spirit if you play soft. And I've always had a very independent streak in me, although I was very shy and very docile in a way, but I always had very definite ideas of how I thought things should sound, and I resisted him sometimes in things, and I think he liked that. I know he liked that because he said that to me many times. But he told me, he said, when you learn a piece of music, you first learn it first exactly the way it's written, nothing more, nothing less. So follow every indication to the most minute detail. He said, when you live with this music and when you've performed it for a while and you internalize it, you cannot help it, but your personality is going to come through, and it's going to be filtered. But if you approach a piece of music from the beginning that way, in other words, you immediately decide how you feel it, how you like it, how you want this to go, or whatever, the chances are that the end result, you're going to have a distorted expression of the composer's spirit. And that shut me up, and that made so much sense to me, and it's something that I've used to this day. Thank you very much.
Okay, now. I'm small, I forget. Okay. Eva de la O. It's your turn. Eva de la O. I know her more as a neighbor than she's a fantastic soprano, but she used to live on one of the floors in the condominium where my father lived. So I know she was practicing with Daddy, and Daddy would accompany her, and a lot of famous people would go through that apartment, and Daddy would make music with them. And Eva was one of them, and she has a lot of funny and anecdotes about him and memories about how that went when she was over at the apartment and when she had concerts with him too. So here is Eva de la O.
Well, I'm unlike, I think, all of the Puerto Ricans that are sitting at this table, because I was born here. I was born in El Barrio. My father and mother are both university graduates from the University of Puerto Rico. My father was a musician who was not practicing his music here in New York, but he played the bombardino, which is an instrument that is very rarely heard nowadays, very instrumental in the danza of Puerto Rico. And my father taught me how to read music before I ever sat at the piano or before I ever knew that I had a voice. But in my house, the name of Jesús María Sanromá was sacred. I mean, I knew that there was this person with this funny name, Jesus Mary. But he was a very famous pianist, and I grew up with that knowledge, which is very important to me as a Puerto Rican living in El Barrio, going to public schools where we were not considered cultured. We were just sort of nuisances as an ethnic group when I grew up there. Very important to me because it gave me courage to do what I am doing today. I'm, besides being a soprano, I'm a founder of a Puerto Rican classical music, chamber music concert series. And the whole idea of chamber music was something that I subsequently, when I moved to Puerto Rico, I was able to become even more inspired. Now, Cherín says that we lived in the same building, but I met him before that moment when I was studying at the Juilliard School of Music, which I got to the Juilliard School, by the way. I moved to Puerto Rico. I competed for a scholarship. I got it from the government of Puerto Rico, and I came to the Juilliard to study. But when I got in one of my vacations, one of my summer vacations from Juilliard, my mother and father were already living there in Puerto Rico, I met this man, this legend. And he gathered all the people that were studying and were working at the Juilliard and other conservatories. He made it his business. I want to hear them play, I want to hear them sing, I want to hear what they're doing. He sort of took command. And he invited us to this absolutely glorious house in San Patricio. And he accompanied the singers, and he heard the pianists, and he heard whoever came, and I had my folder with my music, and he said, ¿Qué tú tienes ahí? What do you have there? And I said, well, I have Mozart, and I showed him my music, and I sang the Mozart. He accompanied me, gave me a couple of pointers, and then he said, what about this? Do you do this? And he pointed to something that I had in my folder called The Shepherd on the Rock. Der Hirt auf dem Felsen, in German, Schubert. And he said, I want to hear you sing this. I said, but we don't have a clarinetist. He said, doesn't matter. I'll play, you sing. So I sang it, and there are a lot of triplets in there, you know, tra-ta-ta, you know. Triplets have to be even. So he said to me, when I finished, I was, of course, trembling. And when I finished, he said, you know what? You're a soprano with a brain. You can do triplets. Very good. So that was my first encounter with the master. And then, quite by accident, I moved into a building where he had his apartment with his wife. And we met many, many times. And we shared music often. He also shared jokes. He loved telling jokes. If I met him in the elevator, he'd say, tengo un chiste. Not a joke, I'm going to tell you. And so he was very fun. In one of my, after I had moved into the building, we were invited my husband and I, to go to an exhibit of his papers, which he had some donated to the government of Puerto Rico. And there was the most exquisite exhibit of works written for him by famous, very famous composers, Stravinsky, Milhaud. I mean, I was in a glass case like this. There were dozens and dozens and dozens of works that had been dedicated to him or signed to him with the most high regard and respect for him as an artist. Of course, when I went to the Music and Art High School, which I also attended here, I was very proud because the teachers there remember Jesús María Sanromá and knew who he was. That nurtured me as a Puerto Rican in New York, coming from where I was born and brought up as a youngster. Coming across some of the, what can I call it, ignorant opinions of us as a people. And so he was quite important to me. And I feel like Gigo, it's a gift that he has left us, a heritage and a history of great accomplishments and an inspiration to those of us who want to continue in classical music, which is very difficult nowadays, more difficult than ever, with the technology and everything going on, and reggaeton and all that stuff. Another aspect about him before I conclude, he was a regular person. I mean, if we had parties in the condominio, in the building, he shared, he danced, he jumped, he enjoyed. You know, he wasn't this how can I call it, elitist. He wasn't an elitist at all. He was a plain person, but a very great artist. And so I'm really quite privileged to have known him. Thank you.
Thanks, Eva. I learned a lot of new things here from you and all the others too. Now, Thelma Itier, a vocal student at the Conservatory of Music in Puerto Rico, and she's had a few experiences in voice class, master classes, right? With Maestro Sanromá. Yes. So, why don't you come up and tell us about that?
Good evening. Yes. I do remember Maestro Sanromá's jokes. Actually, 75% of which I never got, you know. So I'm always laughing. So I used to laugh. Every time he would tell me in the hallways or in the class, etc. It was so funny. But I used to look at him and I just started laughing because I never got them. But anyway, he had so many jokes and I'm not very good at it. I laugh. But I wasn't very good at it. And actually, yes, my mother used to read a lot, and I don't come from a background of classical music at all. However, she used to read a lot, and so did my grandmother, and they used to talk about Jesús María Sanromá. So I went to the conservatory. Everything happened by coincidence, but it's a long story. By the time when I was there, I decided to study with Olga Iglesias, and I always feared high notes. So I discovered this wonderful world of the art song. Not too many singers, if I may say, decided or start their careers or think about themselves as art song singers, but mostly everybody wants to sing opera. I used to attend almost all the performances at the conservatory. Rehearsals of the symphony orchestra, rehearsals of chamber music, whatever. It was easy to get into the, well, it was a very small place, it was. So I used to get into rehearsals of anybody, and also I love to go to listen to other people's lessons. I used to, every now and then, every time he opened his door, maestro, because he had a student, like Alberto mentioned before, for hours and hours. And I would just like sneak in to look at it, no? So he would, one day I remember he invited me. Then we started talking, and eventually after that they offered a vocal literature class, which is what I took with him. We were only 4 students. The other 3 got tired because before we started singing, he would start looking for, he was very much into editions, no? This is not a good one, what you have. So let me see, I have something here. And he would start looking in those old files, and my God, sometimes the look was a half hour, 45 minutes, and he was still looking because he knew he had a different edition. I remember singing a Brahms song, and I didn't speak German, I don't speak German, and it was very difficult for me. But anyway, well, we started working, and that's when I really started. Although my teacher had given me some of that, but he really worked very hard on things like, let's sit down and analyze the music before you start singing it. I had no idea, technically speaking, I sang with a natural voice. I really didn't know much about it. And I was not aware of many singers or famous singers, so I started with him, in a way. And I also fear, like all singers do, to crack my voice, ¿no? Que se me saliera un gallo. Until this day, I still hold back when I sing, and I think it's a fear that I have somewhere in the back of my mind. Well, my first crack was at Maestro's class. I will never forget it. No, the voice really cracked. I mean, it was wow. And there was another student, Lesbia Ramirez, and she looked at me and she started like, you know, we were young, like giggling, etc. But he kept playing. And I stopped. He said, "Why did you stop?" Oh, I looked at him and I said, "Oh, maestro, se me salió un gallo." No, my voice cracked. And he said, "And?" I said, "Yeah, my voice cracked." And he said, "Yeah?" And he looked at me, so in other words, let's keep going. Oh, and I said, "Maestro, I never had the experience before." He said, "Well, you know what happened in a way, Thelma, you were just letting yourself go. And that's why the voice really cracked, because you weren't holding back or controlling everything." Another thing, I'm a very rhythmic person. That's my background, but in popular music. And he used to make me do things with the metronome. I hate metronomes. I think I have a very good sense of rhythm. I don't need the metronome, however. It did help a lot, and it helped me a lot. So at the same time, I was studying piano as any other student at the conservatory had to. I was a voice major and a music education major, but I had to study the piano. And I was studying with a student of his, Nancy Roldan. She was very demanding. And she insisted that although I was not a pianist, all her students had to take the jury as well. And she decided to make me learn some music, and I had to do some Beethoven variations or things like that, and by memory. I said, "But no one else is doing it in the school. I mean, hello, I'm only a singer." So she insisted. Oh my God! So there I went, and maestro. She told Maestro Sanromá, "Maestro, she's working on this, on that." "Oh, is she?" Oh my God, I started panicking. I was taking my jury, and it was Doña Ceci and Doña Luz and Vanessa, and I don't know, everybody else was there. I was, Vasallo, I was nervous enough. And all of a sudden, when I'm ready, after my scales and things that they asked for, I was ready to just, and Maestro walks in. Like, but I mean, it was like a storm. Oh my God, I told him, "What are you doing here?" "¿Qué usted hace aquí, maestro?" "Oh, I came to hear you." Oh my God. Well, he said, "Okay, play the first, play the thing I started." And he said, "Now you play the minor key and the last one." And I turned and I said, "Those are the most difficult ones." I said, "That's precisely what I want to hear them." Okay, so I started playing. I said I had to put myself together, and I started playing. And after that, he actually invited me to the piano department, and I felt honored. I couldn't do it, no? But I was really honored that Don Jesús María Sanromá, I used to call him Don Chuchu. But I remember once also I went to complain. I used to look for music, go to the library and just check for new music, etc. And every time I wanted a score for something specially at the University of Puerto Rico, somebody took it out. For how long? Oh, maybe 2 years. 2 years! So ask that person to return it. And no, we can't, it's Chuchu. I said, okay. Oh, well. And the conservatory, I need this music, etc. Oh, no, Chuchu has it out. Hello? So I went to him, I said, Maestro, I'm looking for certain things and you have them here. He looked at me, I remember, he wasn't mad or anything. He just looked at me. He was very quick, his semester, etc. And he said, oh, do I have it here? Okay, I'll look for it. Yeah, he was very nice. I have a sister that went to the conservatory years after I did, and she was a pianist. When she came to audition, I was very nervous because I said, I don't know my name, and she's playing. Well, anyway, when he came out of the audition, he told me, he said, Mira, she's good. I said, oh, is she? Well, she was pretty good, and he actually taught her. But she wasn't very pleased because his lessons were too long. And she's very, she has her time always, like from here to here, etc. Said, he's good, however, he keeps you there forever. And we have argued many times, not argued, but we have had discussions about it. For me, that was a blessing. It was a blessing. When I first came here, I had a voice teacher, famous, and very good at Manhattan School of Music. He was the chair of the department, etc. And I remember I would wait outside. The lesson was at 12 noon. I was waiting outside, and he didn't care if the other soprano was just in the middle of a cadenza or something, a song, in the middle of a song, or a phrase. He would just open the door, say, good afternoon, Thelma, come in. As we were taking the lesson, he was always keeping an eye on his watch. When everything was, when it was 1 o'clock exactly, sharp, he would say, okay, I'll see you next week. So, and coming from Maestro Sanromá, and actually, we had other teachers, like my voice teacher, Olga, that she saw me outside, and she would say, you're laughing and talking here too much. Come on, let's go to take a lesson, and visiting other people's lessons, and this familiarity with everybody. So, you felt, for me, was a real, what a shock for me. Another experience that I had with Maestro was that my mother used to read a lot, and she had mentioned José Ferrer, but I didn't really pay much attention to it. One day, I was working with him because he was helping me with this, I think it was a Mozart song or something, and this very tall, elegant man walks in with a gorgeous voice. I was younger, I said, wow. Well, anyway. And Maestro said, oh, how are you? And hugs and etc. I said, yeah, this is Thelma. Yeah, and he was very nice. Oh, how nice meeting you, etc. José Ferrer. I went home and I said, Mami, hoy conocí en el estudio del maestro Chuchu, conocí a José Ferrer. And my mother was cooking, and she said, mm-hmm. Then she said, who? Thank you.
Speaking of José Ferrer, I remember José Ferrer. It was my 25th birthday, and José Ferrer was in Puerto Rico, and he had a show at what was before the Hotel Flamboyant at the nightclub. He was presenting for the first time in public Ernita Nazario, which everybody here I'm sure knows who she is. And so they had a show and they were singing and it was very nice. But Daddy, before the show, had gone backstage to José Ferrer and told him it was my birthday. So suddenly in the middle of the show, they finished one of the songs, and Ernita and José Ferrer sang Happy Birthday to Me. I was gonna die.
That's cool.
But it was cool, it was really, really cool. So that's what I remember of José Ferrer. Now, we have, last but not least, Edgardo Díaz. He's a musicologist, researcher of the history of music of Puerto Rico, so he has quite a lot to say.
Not much. There is one person around here that she's like moving a lot, right? All right. Well, I met Chuchu when I was a young student at, just coming out of the Free School of Music, and we had a lunch, and we were listening in the background, El Gran Combo, and then we were figuring out what was the tonality of the piece. He had perfect pitch, I had perfect pitch, and I said, well, that's in G major, and he said, no, it's in E minor. So we had a debate on whether it was in E major or in E minor. One is the relative of the other. So there was no point. Well, that was in the beginnings of relationship. I had piano lessons, but not with him. I had piano lessons with Nachito, Ignacio Casiolomba, our late friend, who was a fantastic teacher. And with no explanation, I don't know why did he leave his piano career. It was a very promising one to study his doctoral degree in chemistry. I don't know why did he do that, but Subi Mehta was one of his admirers, and he wanted him to play more often. We were part of a chamber music. I played the French horn, and it was clear, I was with one of the masters of music. But, the significance of Sanromá in the music conservatory, which, in this book is not included because, this book has much about his early career, and I think it could not resist much, for so much information that it has. That was the relationship that Sanromá had with the students at the Music Conservatory. I was among the leaders of the music council of the conservatory. I was one of these radical, strike makers. I was one of the young Paul is here, and he knows, and he's laughing. But yes, it was, several of the changes in the Conservatory of Music that came later, including the autonomy, came as a result of these movements that I helped lead in the times. And Sanromá was on the opposite side. He was a member of the New Progressive Party, whereas I was a member, militant of the Puerto Rican Socialist Party, Marxist-Leninist, whatever you want to know. And we had all these arguments along the road. But Sanromá, being member of the pro-statehood party, he was also he protected the interests of the Puerto Rican students, and this is something that we must stress, because as much as José de Diego, was instrumental in giving him the scholarship to go to study in Boston, and that he was a good friend of Pedro Albizu Campos during the times when Pedro Albizu Campos was a member of Harvard University Law School. He gave that help in kind to us, the students at the Music Conservatory. His relationship with another member of the faculty, Amaury Veray, was something that is hardly mentioned. They studied in Boston. Amaury Veray studied in the New England Conservatory, and that relationship continued after when Amaury was hired as a member of the Conservatory of Music faculty. Sanromá didn't play piano, he played also percussion instruments and many other musical instruments. He started playing the flute, and he played the violin, but he was tired of the violin because he said he had to carry the violin with him. So he needed something he didn't have to carry. He played the percussion in a piece composed by Amaury Veray, the Dípticos. And in the night of the premiere of that piece, Carlos Molina was in the percussion, and Sanromá was playing the piano as well as the drums. So it was all percussion instruments, and they were playing there were about 21 instruments, different instruments at the same time. After the premiere, finished, something happened, an incident that I cannot recall, and Berai broke the score into parts. So there was no scores left about that. But fortunately, Sanromá had recorded the concert.
Oh my God.
And he restored the music by listening to it, and then he restored it and you know, wrote it down. So you know, this was an act of a master. You know, you don't spend time, you know, doing these things. So the piece was finally recorded with the Instituto de Cultura. I was the person who made the notes in the back, along with another piece by Berai, Holgorio and La Hagana. And you know, this relationship continued, but my relationship with Sanromá was a little bit tense in the latest years, especially during the time when there was the Ferré law that pretended to eliminate the Puerto Rico Institute of Culture, the Puerto Rican Institute of Culture, in the name of a new musical project which is called the AFAC, no, Administración para el Fomento de las Artes y la Cultura, which was something like, you know, cultura sin apellidos, no, culture without any kind of nationality. And a group of us, including Amaury Berai and other people, Milita Vientos Gaston, Madeline Williamson, and other people, we created a group called the Comité Pro Defensa de la Cultura. Of course, Sanromá was on the side of Ferré. You know, he was a very good friend of Ferré, and you know, several situations occurred at the time. The committee did not report to me several of the activities that were happening, and Sanromá, I think it was his last concert, took place at the University of Puerto Rico Theater, and when he was playing, I attended the concert and I sat just in the second floor behind the wall, you know, to see him. But what I didn't notice was that there was a big pancarta, a big sign that read, Sanromá y Campos Parsi, enemigos del pueblo de Puerto Rico. That means Sanromá and Campos Parsi, enemies of the Puerto Rican culture. And he saw me, and I said hello to him over there. I was unaware of the pancarta, and it was the committee to which I belong. Then the next week I went to congratulate him, and then Luis Antonio Ramirez said, I don't know what happened, Edgardo, but Sanromá is speaking a lot about you, and he's saying that, me, you know, I have done more for Puerto Rican culture than Edgardo. And I said, that he's saying that, I mean, that's an honor, that he's comparing me with him, that he has done more for the Puerto Rican culture than I. And then I went to him, and I said, explaining what happened, and he said, I don't want to say anything to you. We are not going to talk anymore. And that was the end of the relationship until the time when I visited him in the hospital. That, you know, we started making jokes, and I had written an article about Iris Chacon, and yes, and then I started, you know, narrating the story of Iris Chacon, saying that she was Christian, that she was moving her nalgas, and so on. And he was laughing, and so, you know, we started speaking about Christianity and all these things, and I left. And then one of you, I don't know who it was, I think it was one of the daughters of Sanromá, came to me and said, you know, she expressed her thanks to me, but I didn't know why. And it was because he had a lot of tribulations, you know, he didn't want to acknowledge his state, you know, that he was dying, until that moment when he met, you know, when he saw me in that room. I don't know which one of you were, but, you know, it was very, you came to me, and then after he was in the, you know, at the Instituto de Cultura, you all came to me, and then, you know, you were expressing me signs of appreciation. So, you know, that was an honor for me, and, you know, he was a person who, once he accused me of doing something in the walls, and then he recognized that he was wrong, and he came to me and said, you know, I asked you for, you know, I beg your pardon. So, you know, he was not the kind of arrogant person that you know, he always was acknowledging his mistakes at times, and you know, that was something, a gesture of humility on his part. So, you know, this is the image I have about Jesús María Sanromá, a person from the other side of the political spectrum, but someone whom I acknowledge as a student leader who was instrumental in helping Puerto Rican students. Thank you very much.
We have finished with all the speakers today, but I'm sure some of you have some questions that you would like to ask the panel, so feel free to ask. No hands? No hands? No takers?
You have a question here?
No
Are
questions?
there recordings? Are there recordings?
Are they recorded?
Oh, the recordings, yes. There are the announcement, okay. There are about 11 CDs already out from all his recordings. I think there were about 100 recordings he did for, well, I don't remember what, for RCA when in the 20s, 30s, 40s. He was constantly recording. And there is a company in England, Pearl Records, and they have decided that the recordings were magnificent. They had to reproduce them. So they have been reproducing, they have 2 albums already out, and it's called the Great Piano Masters. And these are the old RCA recordings. They have been digitalized, and they are really magnificent recordings. There are 2 albums of those. There's the Hindemith collection. There's the Forêt, I think. Forêt was out too with the Primrose Quartet. Gershwin, obviously. There's the Gershwin Rhapsody in Blue and his concert in F. What else is out on CD? Fer de Groffet's concert, which was dedicated to him. And actually, I think that's the one that broke the assistant's record at Hollywood Bowl when he played it for the first time. So there are quite a few recordings. The only way to get them, I guess, right now is internet. Before Tower Records used to bring them, but no more Tower Records.
I should say also that I work for the New York Public Library Sound Archives. Bertie, you remember when he came to do research. We have many of the original analog recordings of the 78 and the LPs, pre-CDs.
Beautiful.
So I just, in case somebody can't get something, they're welcome to come. I have some, folders from my archives. I'd be glad. I brought a few just in case.
Oh,
You're welcome
yes.
to come at any time, and you can listen at it. You can't copy it, but you can come at any time if you want to hear the original analog recordings. We have plenty of them.
Did you hear it back there?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah,
good.
sure.
I just brought
more.
some.
So this is the Rogers and Hammerstein Archives of Recorded Sound, and it's we are at the New York Public Library for the Performing Arts at Lincoln Center. So again, we welcome all of it. We also have great, besides our classical collections, we have a very, very large collection of Hispanic popular music. From the early 1900s, on the original 78s, through the LPs, through cassettes, open reel tapes, private recordings, privately recorded, commercial recordings.
Wow.
So it's a tremendous collection, and we welcome especially students and young people to come and listen to us. We also have music videos, lots of great Hispanic artists performing.
Very good.
Yeah, sure.
I have just, in my trip
I
back,
should have brought more. I didn't realize all the students were going to be here.
my
Okay,
trip
but
here
share
to
it
New
with your
York, I
friends.
brought recordings also. I brought all about 30 or 40 cassette recordings of Daddy performing live in different concerts like the Casals Festival and maybe for concerts in Boston and Harvard University at St. John the Divine Cathedral here in New York, and all these concerts were recorded live by Dad's brother, and we had them all in cassettes. And my mother died 2 years ago, and we have all these recordings, and I just carried them. It's very heavy. I carried them all over, and they're here now. I have donated that to the college. So. We hope that they will be digitalized, and then you will be able to listen to more of his live performances. All right?
And what about the Instituto de Cultura thing?
No, that's a big problem. The Institute of Culture in Puerto Rico has recordings, has 13 albums of Juan Morel Campos danzas performed by Daddy. That was a titanic job that Dad did, researching Morel Campos and recording these. And I was part of the project to digitalize them and get them all on CDs with Héctor Campo Parsi. We both tried to work it out with the Instituto. We had the first album recorded in CD. It's very nice, very beautiful. We had 2 editions pressed. They were sold, and I've asked the Institute to publish them again. They don't want to. And they never did come out with all the rest of the danzas, just one of them. And there were 13 albums. So they have them. What they're doing with them, I have no idea. I asked them, I wanted to buy the copyrights. They said, no, you can't do that. And I can't do anything. So let's go over to the Institute and start writing and make a big mess out of it.
I would also like to say we have, regarding master classes, we have many master classes at our library of different famous artists. We have all the master classes of Pablo Casals. He gave his whole collection to us on video.
Very
So you
nice.
can come and watch him coaching
Wow.
all his great students. So
Interesting.
For anybody, open to anybody.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Any more questions? That's it.